So it's winter, it's about 2 degrees, but we can start thinking about being able to use the camper again soon. So one thing that's been bugging me though is the mattress here. The problem is when you lie on here, your hip sort of pushes down until it's pressing into the plywood underneath, and it gets pretty uncomfortable. There's a company that will replace it with a custom size one, so I'm going to do that. So now I've taken the old mattress out of here, and I've taken out the piece of carpet I had underneath the mattress, and what it's revealed is that there's quite a lot of damp on the surface below, and the damp stretches into the thin plywood which is in the walls, which I've never replaced. So I've just stripped that plywood out here and I'm sort of drying it off. Same thing this side, I've just stripped this off, and you can just see how wet this is. I definitely want to sort this out before I put the new mattress in, which has just arrived, because the last thing I want is the new mattress getting ruined. The new mattress has arrived. Anyway, we're going to leave it in the box for now, and then when we're ready with the camper, then we'll unbox it. Additionally, I've put the dehumidifier on in the camper. It's a really good piece of kit. Done a bit more investigation here. This was all wet here and down here, and I dried this off and then I left it in the rain. But after about half an hour rain, I could see water dribbling down roughly where I'm illuminating with the torch. So it's clearly leaking here. The ceiling's quite soft here. As I strip this off, I'll be able to see where it's leaking and then what needs sealing from the outside. I stripped a bit more. Yeah, look at it coming out of there. And I have also done the other side. Pulled this piece of trim away, so the wood up here is dry. It gets wet towards the end, which I'd expect because there's water coming through here. Go to the other side. So it's fairly dry there, and then gets very wet here. You see water's come through. I've got the dehumidifier on, I've got a fan running, and that water's still coming through. And we've had heavy rain, so now we can see, so there's droplets of water here, there's a bit there, it's coming down at this area, it's wetting all this, and then it's running round this plastic frame either side, and we can see it's just glinting down there. See, it's wet. The timber here, that's where some of that timber's rotted. Same thing here, you can see bits of water glinting. See, that's newly wet, bit of water glinting there. It's not travelled as much on this side. So I started to pull this off, and you can see, look, there's a load of water, and it's very wet in that corner, and it gets a bit less wet, and then it's dry over here. It's got to be coming in somewhere over here. That's the insulation I put in 13 years ago when I rebuilt the outer roof, welded aluminium. I stripped some of this off, so there's water there, that's wet. Again, then it's dry. Gets over this side, it gets very wet. It's heading down, it's wet in that direction, but notable thing, if you look here, most of the wetness is around this point. So it's obviously spreading down that way, but I wonder, it's probably emanating here just above the window. Well, the dehumidifier is doing a good job. I've stripped away virtually as much as I need, I think. Yeah, look, that rail, it's all rotted. I've just pulled away the loose stuff with the fingers. Other bits aren't too bad structurally. I've just pulled water on the outside, but there's not much of a sign of water coming through. What's that? That's a scratch. And the difficulty is knowing where it's actually leaking in. And because there's a membrane on top of the ply that I installed when I replaced the outer roof, in theory it could have leaked somewhere down this way and run along here, and then this could be the first place where it just drops off that membrane and wets all this. If I could find the location, it'll be easy enough to seal on the outside. There's drips of water there, and that cannot be condensation. We know that because the dehumidifier has been on for 2 days. It's dry as a bone in here. I know it seems a bit odd. I'm going to be watering the camper. See if we can get the water to come through.
What are you doing watering the camper?
Yeah.
Plants are down there.
Well, yeah, it's just this is quite dry, you know. It's thirsty.
What?
I'm trying to work out where this is coming through, because there's a possibility it could leak somewhere and then run forward. I'm guessing the drive is at a bit of a slope. Now the thing is, I'm thinking if it was leaking around the moonroof, we would see water stains through osmosis or capillary action near the actual near the moonroof itself, and we're not. If it was coming from that side, we would see where it was coming across. If it was leaking from around here, we should see it being wet around the actual hatches, but it's not. So that must be from that water. So the question is, where is that leaking in? Now, I didn't do that this morning when I poured water up here. This time I poured water over this way. Some of the timber where it's difficult to directly replace, I'll often put sort of structural timber alongside and glue it in. I know it adds to a tiny amount to the weight, but still, despite pouring all that water on the roof, didn't manage to get an obvious leak inside. That's really frustrating. So after a lot of watering of the camper on the roof, it didn't seem to make much difference. Now looking now, suddenly saw a couple of little drops of water, one this side and one the other side. I've had to cut this piece of ceiling here and put it down, and I've found that it's actually indeed wet. You can just probably see it glistening there. It is wet on above the insulation. Now you can see where the cables run. Some of these are probably for the clearance lights. It's raining outside and it is definitely leaking in here. Let's start cutting some reinforcing pieces to go in. So this will reinforce the wood that's rotten. That's a cutout for a cable there. I think this is all the woodwork I'm going to put in on this side. If I was going to do a proper job and I had a barn I could keep this under cover, then obviously I can just strip the whole front end off this camper, strip all the siding, replace all the timber, but I think this will keep going for a while. This is looking dark not because it's wet, but because I put some wood hardener on it. Right, been away in Dallas for a week, so didn't get anything done. So come back here. It has been raining here, so I did notice that the water was starting to wet this up here. I put the dehumidifier back on, so it is clearly running down the side here somewhere. I'm just going to need to go across the whole roof inch by inch and look for where it can be getting in. So this is some insulation I bought before, some sort of household stuff. So started stuffing that in the gaps, and I glued in these pieces of reinforcing. I found this aluminium sticky tape. I'm going to use this to tape these wires in place. Stick this in a few places. Found this in the garage. It's from when I did the back wall of the camper. Well, that looks a lot better, and I want to be able to take it off easily to inspect and work on it, which is a problem with all this stuff in the past. It's all stapled on, it's never designed to be removed or inspected. If the floor's looking dark there, it's where I've gone over it with some of that wood hardener stuff. One of the things I've always been in need of here is a proper reading light, because there's just that, but it'd be nice to have a proper one. So I've ordered one of these that screws to the wall. It's got a USB socket on it, and I just need to take a 12-volt feed to it. I've already cut a slot in here to run a cable up here to where it's going to be mounted. I've just got to work out one of these One of these will be going to the clearance lights, one of these sets of wires will be going to the lighting. So conveniently the manufacturers decided to use two vaguely different shades of green to indicate which was which. I think white is the ground wire, if I remember on American wiring. What colour have we got up here? That looks like the light. There's the dark green on the right, that's the light green on the left, which is going to this light. So that should be lighting, so if I pull that before I start doing anything, the light should go out. There we go. Okay, I've turned the power back on and we can check which is, make sure I have cut the right wires and what the polarity is. Why the heck am I getting 17 volts? Well, that is the right polarity, so white is definitely negative. Let's just check. 100% battery, 30.9 volts. Yeah, maybe that voltmeter's a bit suspect. That's the reason it's got 13 volts and not 12.65 is that even though it's not a sunny day, the solar is kicking out power. I'll just put some tape against the aluminium siding so it doesn't short against that if something comes undone. I'll put some cable ties around as strain relief. Should also keep everything in place if one of these comes loose. I've marked on the back of this which side this belongs to and which orientation, so when I take it off I don't make a mistake and then it doesn't fit, because these are custom built to each side. I tend to use the budget drill for these light duty things because it didn't cost much and it's really light. Now I need to countersink these. Normally I always struggle with countersink bits, they're always the wrong angle for these screws. Now this is, yeah, this has actually got little cutters on there so it cuts itself, so could try and use that with the impact driver just there and just see if I can erode a hole or a countersink hole in there using that. That's very hot. That's done the trick. We'll take it off after this, but let's get it in later so we can paint it. Well, that looks a lot better than it did before. Again, this will be painted white. Put some filler on here, these corners here, some wood filler, this sort of stuff. So I'll just sand it down and then paint that, because I'm not going to bother cutting a piece of timber to fit there. It'll just, the plywood will be like that, and then it'll just be white behind. Okay, so it's not raining for once. So I've come up on the roof to try and work out where it's leaking, and it's really not obvious. So obviously this is all welded aluminium. You know, I've checked the welds. Yeah, it's my welding, it's not particularly brilliant, but clearly it's not getting in through there. Where the moonroof attaches, I've got I'd sealed the individual screws, can't really see, and the sealant in some of these, when I rotated it, I found the sealant came loose and it was slightly moist underneath, so I pulled that off, and I'm just removing these screws one by one, sanding down the cleaning it up, and then I'll put some more sealant on and screw it on. But so far none of those look like they are leaking. It's so really not clear where this water's coming in from. The screws I've removed so far, I mean, completely dry, because it's pretty sealed down there. If there were water getting through these, it would remain on the screw threads. Now, I did put stainless steel screws on. Actually, that hasn't helped, because of course the screw doesn't corrode, which seems good, but it doesn't give you a telltale sign of whether there's water getting in. We've got cracking appearing. Some of these were cracking when I took the moonroof off 13 years ago, so I don't know that they've got any worse. Now, I should also look at this line of sealant along here between the moonroof and the aluminium. So these screws didn't appear to be leaking, but I've cleaned them up and I need to reseal them. Well, another nice day. It did get below freezing overnight, but I think I probably got away with it. I checked the sealant I put on yesterday and it does seem okay. Check the front here. If you look at this whole roof rail, I've welded it together in the corners, which is probably a bit inconvenient now, but I should be able to undo the bolts and then just be able to lift it up just enough. Now, each of these has got a captive nut. Being a bit of a cheapskate, rather than buy something, I just used a nut and then got a bit of stainless steel bar, TIG welded it on. There we go. Yeah, so that gives me a bit of clearance. Also remove this step. This was to make it easier to get from one side of the roof to the other. If I press that down, there's water bubbling there. So that's clearly leaking. I've put a thick layer of sealant over this. Also got a gap here. Need to reseal. Now, above this rail I've got some sealant and there's a gap there. I don't know if that's causing a problem, whether it could penetrate upwards via capillary action. See, this bit's all discoloured here, and when I pulled it away it felt moist as well. So I've just pulled out the screw from here that holds this rail on. There's not really any corrosion that indicates that it's wet behind there. I do wonder if having the sealant going right up to there was not helping, because with the thermal expansion and contraction of the aluminium, it tends to pull away from the sealant, and that's going to create a tiny gap for water to get in via capillary action and potentially seep upwards. So maybe just cutting that top bit away is actually better. I've pulled the screw out from here, that's completely dry. Bit of discoloration at the end, but then it's going into timbers that we know have got wet. Back inside, I've used some of this recycled insulation, put it back up there, it's a lot thicker than the old stuff, and screwed this on. So these new wood panels are in, or plywood panels. I've also stuffed some of that insulation up here, and I need a piece to run across there. So I don't want to glue it in because that area got wet before, and I want to be able to remove it if necessary. So I'm going to screw it in. There wasn't a piece here before, but I need one because I'm going to have a new panel that screws on here, so I need something for it to screw into. Getting some extra wood in on this side now, just replacing the stuff that's rotted and I've cut away. I've left some of the old rotted stuff there and just worked around it, because to remove it fully would be really difficult. I'd have to sort of pretty much remove parts of the roof. I found some, not plywood, hardboard. Found some that is pre-painted white on one side. Before I screw the rest of this panel on, I'm just stuffing insulation in the gap here. Now all the sealing screws are in, what I'm going to do is pull them out one by one and just countersink them and then put them back. I didn't want to do that until I knew exactly where they were going to go, so that's why they're sitting proud at the moment. See how that goes. I want to add a reading light, so I bought this one. It's got a USB socket as well, which is quite useful. Need to hold the insulation in place because it's just going to fall out. So what I've done is I've got some old inner tube, bicycle inner tube that I had spare that I'd already cut up. I'm going to try and stretch that across and use that to sort of hold it in place. That's the ply on this side screwed in place, ready to be painted. Let's see what's going on in the camper. Hello! You've locked the door. Oh, how's it looking?
It's not easy.
No, it's horrible trying to work lying on your back. Oh, that's looking a lot brighter. Yeah, that's a great improvement. Obviously we've got the big gaps up here where I've not bothered cutting the wood in, the plywood in to fit, but I've bought some contrasting light oak, for fake light oak trim that appears to be bendable around there. So I've cut that to size and we'll try fitting that. So this is what I'm going to use as trim, that contrasting trim, and it's sort of fairly flexible. I've got some brass screws. I drilled the holes to match roughly where the existing screws on the side panels are, and then I didn't want to use a proper countersink tool because this is just like a fake plastic finish over a foam and it's just going to tear this apart. So what I did is took a brass screw, put it in the impact driver and then ran it at speed until it slowly sort of melted its way down until it was roughly flush. Paint's on and the trim is on, so that definitely helps. I've just spotted this. Look, that seam is going to be letting water in, so I need to put a wider strip of sealant along there. I've masked it and I'll now get a thick layer of sealant over this whole lot. I've just basically dolloped it on there, so now I'll smooth it down with my finger. This Sikaflex sticks to everything, especially fingers and clothes. This is the area of risk where it flicks back and lands on your clothing, because everything that touches ends up with Sikaflex on it. Another little bit of maintenance. These things are always breaking. I've got some more specific to US RVs. Next thing I need to fabricate is curtain rods. Now, originally had these plastic things in, and you had to sew this strip onto the curtains. I really didn't like it. The poppers start coming loose. So what I'm going to try is to have household style rod, a bit like this, with curtain rings. So I found this in Dunelm, and I've got these rings. That was from a bench that we had for about 10 years in the garden and it rotted. So I might be able to make the sort of 4 end pieces that I need out of this. Put the planer on it. See, I didn't buy that. Aha, that's my late father's, so it was a birthday present for him, or Christmas present. Well, nice to keep using it on this despite us him unfortunately no longer being with us. Must come out all right. Now, the reason I went for these, which is not really the right part, was because when I looked at traditional curtain rails, they're great wide things and the rings are really big and they're designed to sit quite a long way off the wall because you've got so much space in a house, whereas here we need it really to be close, and hence I've fabricated these spaces here. Yeah, that's looking better. I put the fire extinguisher down over here. It was such a pain where it was here. Put the coat rack back up, put this little hook back up. This has been a long haul from the day that I said, oh, I think we should change the mattress, to actually being able to change the mattress. Because this is what happens when you start delving into these things and you discover problems that need to be resolved. This is like an underlay, a breathable layer to go underneath the mattress. Right, that's a breathable layer. But there we go, that's it basically all done. That took a bit longer than I thought, when I just thought I was going to have to buy a bed. Phew, big relief, we can go camping now.